Hello and welcome to the Madras Medai Podcast. Madras Medai is a festival and business expo which celebrates the equality in music and enables artists from different backgrounds to come together with a collective conscience. The podcast will cover various aspects pertaining to building an inclusive, diverse and equal music ecosystem. This series is powered by the British Council.
Hello and welcome to the Madras Medai Podcast. I'm your host for today. My name is Tejas and I'm part of the core team behind the Madras Medai Festival and other projects that we do based in South India. This podcast is essentially focusing on the business of music, understanding the economy of creative arts and culture, monetization of arts and music, and the informal music ecosystems that we as independent practitioners, studios, festivals, collectives are trying to navigate. And for today's episode, we're going to focus on a really interesting subject which we call the business of the scene, which looks at how a subculture, also known as a scene, that starts at a very grassroots level can over time evolve into being a viable, monetizable industry for those engaging within that community. And our guests for today are Sarah Jones from Focus Wales, joining us from the Northern Islands, and we have Navin from Original Dog here in India. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us on this episode. It's a pleasure to have you on board for the series. And if I can hand it over to you, Sarah, first for a brief introduction on yourself and the work that you do at Focus Wales and otherwise.
Hi, thanks so much for having me and for the introduction. I'm Sarah Jones. I'm the Programme Manager at Focus Wales Festival. Focus Wales is a non-profit organisation and we provide the annual showcase festival for the Welsh music industry. So it's an international festival which takes place in Wrexham each year, and Wrexham is in the north-east of Wales. And we have about 15,000 people each year now coming to the town. 2020 was going to be our 10th edition. So hopefully, if we can take place this year, it'll be our 10th year.
Amazing. Great. Thank you for sharing. And also we have Navin Dorai, who is the co-founder of a young new startup within the music ecosystem in India called Original Dog. Navin, over to you.
Hey, thank you for having me. So I'm the founder of Original Dog, a platform that we started to fill a couple of gaps that we saw, which was mainly in marketing and funding. So it's India's first funding and marketing platform for original music and the people who make them. So we started this as a tool to help musicians out. We just had a few artists to begin with. I think in the last 6 or 7 months, we've got about nearly 50 now. And we've got a whole bunch of things that we've got going on to help, again, bring spotlight to the scene, as it were. I'll leave it at that.
Awesome, thank you. So great. I think within the work that both of you do, the independent arts and music culture of your respective countries and cities are fairly important, and communities that you engage with on the regular. And an interesting thread that the team at Madras Medai noticed between the work you both specifically do is the threads of what a city like Wrexham, which is quite unique in the larger landscape of the UK and the Northern Islands when it comes to arts and culture, and a city like Chennai, which is where Madras Medai is based, and in the south of India, where again the independent arts and culture ecosystem is fairly different to how it operates in the rest of the country. So leading off that thread, I'd like to dig a little deeper into your own take of what the scene is in either Wrexham or in Chennai, and then maybe we can start drawing some parallels through that. Sarah, if you would like to go first.
Yeah, I suppose there's always been a big music scene, however you define that, in Wrexham, and a big arts scene as well. And that's kind of what Focus Wales came from and exists to promote to the world, because that sort of platform didn't exist for it, even though all this amazing music was happening. There was no sort of one key event to showcase that to places outside of Wrexham. And if you were not from Wrexham, you probably wouldn't realise how big the music scene was and how thriving it was, because it existed sort of within its own bubble a little bit. Because Wrexham can be seen as a bit of a unlikely place, I suppose, to have this big cool music scene. And especially because there used to be, sort of in the early 2000s, my colleague Neil booked a venue called Central Station in Wrexham, and so many massive bands played there while he was the booker. And there was this really sort of great period of time where bands like Block Party, Kasabian, just when they were like starting out, passed through and played there. And then the town was hit quite hard by the recession, and lots of venues closed down, lots of shops closed down, and everything just sort of slowed down a little bit. But that music scene still existed and still thrived in the smaller venues and pubs and places. And now I think we're sort of coming back. I think Focus Wales is sort of striving to put Wrexham on the map as a music town. And I think hopefully people are starting to see that now.
Yeah, absolutely. And how many years have you guys been doing Focus Wales for?
So this is our 10th year. Well, last year should have been our 10th year, but obviously it couldn't happen. So this will be our 10th year. Would have been our 11th, but it's going to be worth the wait.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm curious to know, in the 10 years that you've done the festival, what kind of evolution have you seen, both from the lens of the creators and the artists that are involved in the project, but then also probably the impact of a Focus Wales on the city of Wrexham and the subcultures within the city and surrounding parts? Have you seen that sort of change as the festival has grown?
I think a massive change. I think if we had a time machine and we could go back to 10 years ago and see all these people who were in the music scene then and still are now, I think the main difference would be it's been such a confidence boost, even if it's been gradual. I think there's so much more confidence now in Wrexham as a place and in all the people to think like, yeah, Wrexham is a cool place. This amazing stuff can happen in Wrexham, and people do travel from around the world here to see what we've got on offer. Whereas I think in the past people have had a bit of a sort of like people's opinion of Wrexham hasn't been that. It's had quite a bad reputation for no real reason. It's not a common tourist destination, I guess, and people don't have the confidence in it in that way, but I think they do now, hopefully.
No, that's great. And I think that's one of the reasons we found the thread between a Chennai and a Wrexham quite interesting, is because not that they're not cities that have amazing cultural offerings for the rest of the world and the country, but because they're often overlooked, maybe because they're not as glamorized as, say, in the case of the UK and other parts, maybe like a London or a Birmingham or a Manchester, or just because you don't hear of it as often, it often gets overlooked. And using that as a sort of pivot to bring this to Navin, as you may know, Navin, Chennai has always been sort of overlooked for almost no reason. Like Sarah said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the subcultures of the city. We have all this amazing talent. We have some really incredible venues, lots of heritage locations, public buildings, public parks, all available to be taken over. But fortunately or unfortunately, a very small pocket of the music ecosystem has been able to thrive within that, and that's predominantly classical music, and then the other alternative being film music, which is not really a public performance or public engagement kind of genre. So, what is your take on how Chennai and surrounding parts of South India have sort of or are looked upon as a subcultural hotspot?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I can speak as far as Chennai is concerned. I was pretty much born and brought up here. So, I can't remember. I think the first concert that ever existed while I was alive was the Venga Boys, and that was the first experience. Oh yeah, that was the first international experience. I was quite old as well. I think I was probably 15 or something at the time. That was the first time we ever saw someone that we'd recognized from our cassettes at the time, that had come down to Chennai. And as you rightly said, most people overlook us entirely. They'll come to Bombay, they'll come to Bangalore, they'll miss us entirely. And I kind of get it. I think the issue is that we don't necessarily, as you said, market original independent music as well as we do Bollywood or Tollywood or anything tied to any form of cinema, which has a lot of money pumped into it. You see it on TV, you see it in your movies, you see it on YouTube. There's high production. You don't have any of that for us. I mean, all the local musicians here, they have like a camera at home and they're rapping in front of it, or just sitting with a guitar and singing. And that's the level most of us had growing up. And there have been a few, of course, who've broken that mold. The older names like Junkyard grew back in the day, and Parikrama, and all these Indian Ocean, all these bands that came out back in the day, where even from Chennai or up north or anywhere, all the great bands from Kerala, you'd know them all over India, including Chennai. Thaikudam Bridge, Avial, all these names just roll off the tongue, but they've been around for ages. What I've noticed today is that I think because of the internet being more adopted and more opportunities and platforms coming out there for these independent musicians, they are now more known than ever before. A local rapper from Chennai can now be known all over India, and someone from some remote place in Delhi can be known in Chennai now, as long as they have some great content out there, which I think is great. And the fact that COVID happened even more, I think, boosted the online presence of people, because people had nowhere else to find these people. It usually just was gigs, and the problem there is most people don't want to attend new gigs for new artists they've not seen before. If it's a familiar name, they're happy to go. But if it's a new person, again, there's a little bit of a hesitance. They don't get the same money, they don't get the same crowd. All that's, I think, slowly, and I think rather actually quickly now, more than ever, changing, which is good. So, but I would say, there hasn't been a great scene compared to the rest of the country here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, if you're not aware of why I speak of Chennai this way, is because if you had a touring band or an artist traveling to India, right, you'd have them go to Mumbai, and then you'd have them go to Delhi, and then you'd have them go to Bangalore, which is another big city in South India, not very far at all from Chennai. But for some reason, it would just stop at Bangalore and then go back to another city altogether, not make the jump all the way down south to Chennai. However, Chennai has always had this very rich and vibrant culture for folk music and live music and bands, and even a lot of DJs, electronic music. It's always had that, but somehow it just never found the sort of limelight. And this is something from what both of you said, I realize is a parallel, which I'd like to speak to both of you about, is when you have these cities that are often overlooked purely because maybe there's a lack of awareness, or maybe there's a lack of exposure to what goes on in these cities. I feel a huge part of changing that is curation and discovery. And people sort of who are aware of the wealth of culture and music that's available in that market, let's say, and finding ways to bring it to light, which I think both of you are doing in your own ways through your platforms. So I'd just like to know from the two of you what you feel is the importance of the act of curating local talent, but at the same time balancing it with bringing in talent from outside and creating an awareness within the audience of that city primarily?
So I think events like Focus Wales are so important for the local talent because, again, going back to the confidence thing, I think it gives people such a boost that people are willing to travel from Japan and Australia and Canada and India and all these places to check out your band. And it's not just showcase festivals they're not just about the headliner, they are about the discovery of the new bands. And giving them that platform is like, it's wild. It's like, it's so cool. And just to have that in your hometown as well, somewhere like Wrexham or Chennai, and you don't have to travel to London, you don't have to go to Bangalore, you don't have to go anywhere, you can have it on your doorstep. I think that's what we're trying to create. And going back to what we were talking about before as well a little bit, I think another reason why Wrexham gets overlooked on touring routes as well as anything else is the geography of it, because where we are based in Wales, we're very close to the border with England. Places like Liverpool and Manchester are really close. They're like an hour away, if that. So touring will naturally go to those cities. And on the other side of where we are is Snowdonia, which is sort of the most beautiful national park in Wales. It's the most touristy place in Wales, so that's what sort of Wales is known for. So I think we just get overlooked geographically as well a little bit. But actually, what we've realised is Wrexham is perfectly placed for events because we are close to big cities for people to fly in. And we are close to everything. We've got really good routes in and out, and the infrastructure is there. So it was actually quite easy and natural to put an event like this there.
What is the curation for a Focus Wales guided by? Is it sort of led by local talent first and then the international talent sort of follows suit? Or is there a formula at all?
Yeah, so when Focus Wales first started, we were only, I wasn't there at the time, but I think it was 1 day or 2 days and only 2 stages and maybe like 20 bands. And it was local talent. And then each year we sort of built up to add, like a headliner, whether they were from, in the first years, they were probably from Wales or the UK, because they're it's good to sell tickets. And also you're then getting that audience to watch the local talent, and the local talent are able to then say that they've supported these bands. They can add that to their sort of CV. I don't get. And then as we've grown and become more international, I suppose the international talent and the local talent just naturally sit alongside each other quite well. The local audiences are really keen to see the international acts, and the international acts are really keen to see the local acts. So I think they support each other really well in that way. And the headliners are still there as the sort of ticket sellers, I guess. But like as the event has grown, people get it now. People want to discover the new bands. They want to see who's from Wrexham, and like, I don't know. Yeah, I think you'd see just as many people now watching local bands as the other bands. So it's really cool. It's like a really nice environment.
Cool. Yeah. Taking this over to Navin, I know your platform is driven a lot more online than offline, which, like you mentioned, is a very exciting space as well, and comes with its own unique pros and cons and challenges. And I think it's the same with things like curation and the ability for artists to be able to put out their work in an environment where maybe we don't have as many events or festivals in South India. Could you give us some insight into how your platform sort of puts these different pieces together for audiences to discover?
So, see, in terms of what you had said earlier about curation and the importance of platforms, it's obviously vital for anyone. Like, for example, how do you imagine an artist would get anywhere without Spotify or Apple Music or, now like Rahman's come out with something called Maja, which really can boost things out in South India, and various other platforms that have come out, to help distribute, to help this, etc. There are a lot of platforms to help you. Once you've made it, or once you have something, you're marketable, people want to automatically market you. Labels will come, managers will come. What about the people who aren't great at the marketing side of things? They're brilliant talents, but they may not have the best English. They may be from a different language, for example. They don't have the best English. What do they do? But you need good English to be able to speak to a global audience. You need to be able to copyright well. You need to be able to design well. You need to be able to package yourself better. And there is nothing that I could find, at least at the time, that was able to do this for artists when I started, which is what kind of drove me to start this, to fill in those gaps, give everyone an equal platform. We don't curate, fortunately or unfortunately, we don't curate. We allow everyone to come on the platform and we give them the same tools. We don't have any preferential treatment, or it's all free as well, so there's no premium listing or anything like that. They all have an equal chance to make it. So that's all we want to do. We're not promising anyone success, but what we're saying is we will make sure as whatever we can in our power to make sure that you don't have marketing as an issue to your success or a hindrance to your success. We'll try and help you out as much as we can for free. We're not asking anything. We don't take contracts. We don't take any future earnings. You're not signed to us exclusively. None of that. We just want to be a tool to help out. And also to another point, we have also started offline as of last Tuesday.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
Which is we started this thing online as well called OD on Music, that was more of a talk show like this, where we talked to a bunch of local artists about international artists, sort of like a common talking point. And that's open to the public, so people can come and watch that. But offline is important. It is vital because that's where the money is right now. To be very honest, you don't make much money online for the artists I'm talking about. So I wanted to start something again, trying to equate the platforms, where people come to visit this gig not to see a particular artist, but to discover a new one. And here's where we curate a bit, So we try and put together something interesting, something that no one's seen before. So I can tell you, actually, I'm happy to share with you what we did last week. This was the first show ever. We picked a great venue, which is Barracuda Brew, a new venue in Chennai, and it had great sound, which is what I really, cared about. And we got... So this is the first one where we're going to tell people who is going to be on the gig before they come. And subsequently, we're going to take that away. So we thought, let's make this a good one. We got a former tennis player who has held records and still holds records as the youngest player to achieve certain things. In India, for example, the Chennai Open, at the time Chennai Open, which is part of the ATP, he's the youngest person to have even reached the finals there. So he's known for something else entirely. And he retired in about 2006, if I'm not mistaken. And since then, he's been writing music. He is actually a musician, first I would say. His talent is phenomenal. He just has so many stories. He had something to say, and he's like a singer-songwriter, just been writing songs, him and his guitar, and doing nothing with it. And he did one gig, I think, yes, but like not really releasing any albums. I don't think he had that, he didn't think of it like that. He didn't want to become make it a career necessarily, he has other things going on. But we brought him. We put together an album out of all the millions of songs he's written. We put together 12 songs and said, let's show the public some of this. We got together two veteran musicians to help him out. One was my partner in Original Dog, Keba Jeremiah from Rahman's team, and Vinay as well, Vinay Ramakrishnan, who's part of several bands in Chennai. So you got these two guys to help him out, given the short notice and everything, and we did a kick-ass gig that ended up in the newspaper as well, came in the Hindu, and I thought that's great. And from the next one on, we're not going to tell anyone who it is, but they're going to be super pleasantly surprised when they come there. It doesn't have to be someone new, it doesn't have to be someone old, but it's going to be something great. So by this way, we thought it's really cool because a new artist that comes for one of these gigs or does one of these gigs, they're going to get the same audience as a veteran one, or someone's been in the scene. They're getting the same marketing, the same amount of money, everything. So this is one way we thought we could do something a little different with the offline side of things.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And what was the reaction like for this sort of event that you guys put together?
Oh, so the cool thing was the it was the first time we're doing it, so the bar was happy to experiment with us as long as it was on a Tuesday. So we did this on a Tuesday where obviously, you're not going to get much of a crowd, and I'm happy to say we packed the place. There wasn't a single empty table. I think we had over 100, close to 150 people there, which is great for a Tuesday. And I think the reaction was great. People love the music. People now know he plays music. They know him as a musician now, which was the main objective. And of course, the press coverage really did help as well. Because that's the first time we've seen him now on stage in the newspaper. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, that's actually really cool, and it drives me to the next point I was just about to bring up, which is in many ways to cut through in a market that might not be as glamorized as some other cities. You often have to do these things, right? A little left of center and like try and push the out of the ordinary and so on. You earlier mentioned that your platform online is more of a tool and it's more to equate the platform for everybody, whether they're a young artist or an old artist. Have you seen some of that translate on ground as well? Like I noticed on your website you also have some crowdfunding style campaigns, and you have these really cool projects that artists are sort of publishing on your platform first to let their fans know, and then if someone would like to support, there's an exchange of either donation or contribution or that sort of stuff. Have you seen some of that make some kind of an impact to what the scene on ground looks like?
So, unfortunately, it's not been long enough for me to tell you the impact because a lot of the things that have got crowdfunded are still in production, unfortunately. But I can tell you what we have done with one of our first funds that we did, which is now getting ready to get shot, which is this an artist I think you might know, which is MC Valover. He's literally a gully boy in every sense of the word. He was born and brought up in a gully, and his way out of the situation he was in was to write rhymes pretty much, and he found himself really good at it, and he just did it, and he didn't really know how big it was going to get or how big he the scene was going to get. He just did what he liked, and I met him recently because we did a project together for another friend, and I was blown away by his talent. Like I'll be very honest, my Tamil is not fantastic. I don't understand, and his Tamil is excellently advanced, and I don't understand most of what he's rapping about, but you can tell it's fantastic. The flow, the rhyming schemes, you can tell there's talent in there and that's what's great about music. You don't have to understand the actual words. It translates to you, in some other way. So he was the second person. He had a campaign put for 55,000 for a song that he had sitting around, and he wanted to make a music video for it. It so turns out that most of the songs that he had released, he didn't actually own. It was owned by the label that was helping him out with those things. I mean, fair enough. They're putting the money in. They've taken the ownership of the music videos as well. This one is going to be one of the few ones that he owns himself, which he crowdfunded to this. And because he trusted us with this, we wanted to even help him produce it. So what we did was we helped him first raise the funds. Now it just so happens that his fans are not very wealthy as well, because they're from his background and they couldn't afford to really put in much or anything. In fact, we couldn't actually get any of his fans to fund the campaign. So we said, he has a great story, let's tell his story. So we told his story through Original Dog, and that time the focus was more on him because there were only 3 or 4 artists, and we entirely organically, from people who he has never met or who have never heard his music before, got 55,000 rupees funded. We used that money because by the time it got funded, it was about 2 months. He had already finished making a video for that song, so he made an entirely new song, something a little bit more groundbreaking, because this is the first time he's going to talk about his life and the struggles he's had, which we thought is pretty cool. He's actually opening out to the audience for the first time. Keba again was really nice enough to again produce this track for him, so he's got a big celebrity name attached to the song that he's going to do. He's not paid anymore. He's not done anything more. This is still the same campaign. We're going to get a really good singer as well. We have a few people in mind. We're not confirmed, but we want to get a really good singer from the north, again, to open him out to a new audience, to sing the chorus on his song. We're going to help distribute it for him. It's all his owned, by the way. He is going to put it on his channel. He's going to release it through his name. And the impact is, I don't think he would have been able to put this together exactly this way without the platform. And we're so happy to be able to give artists like him an opportunity like this. So I would say it's not us. It's just we know a lot of people who are putting them together, and someone like Valour can really benefit from that. That's something that I've seen that has had some impact, and we hope that this is going to be one of many stories going forward.
Do you mind if I ask you a question,
Please.
Navin?
Sure.
As you mentioned about languages then, and that I'm a bit ignorant to how many different languages you have over there, but do you find that there is any divide between artists who perform in different languages and whether they sort of are able to reach equal audiences? Because it's quite similar here in Wales. We have Welsh language artists and then English language artists. And we're sort of, like years ago, they used to be quite divided in a way. Welsh language artists would sort of get pushed into their own corner. But now it's becoming much more popular, and we're sort of having a bit of a resurgence of Welsh language music being cool again, and like they're getting an equal platform, which they should have had anyway. But I was just wondering if it's similar over there.
Well, I would completely say that we definitely have a big issue in terms of language. So I would say the most popular language generally that everyone would know in India is Hindi. So that the majority of India can speak Hindi. Like definitely most Indians are multilingual. But no matter where you go, you will find someone who could potentially speak Hindi. Except for this little state of ours called Tamil Nadu, where we're very adamant that Tamil is an important language over Hindi and even English, and we're very proud of our language. And and because of that, we also tend to not know Hindi in this area. So we can't even choose to release music in Hindi necessarily if we wanted to, because we've just not been brought up needing the language here. Even English, you might find people knowing, but not even Hindi, right? So that's the thing. We might know English and Tamil, but not Hindi, which is a language in our country. Now, the problem there is if someone from here in Chennai, for example, which is in the area which speaks Tamil, if we wanted to go, market to someone in the north, if they didn't understand what we were saying, they're unlikely to like the music as much. So you have to be really talented to be able to break that mold. But having said that, one of the most popular musicians in India, A.R. Rahman, is from our part of the country. So, and he does music in all languages. So I think, and he's famous all over India. So I think where we could improve on that is by collabing with other languages. Like say we have a Hindi-Tamil collab, then people from this audience and that audience get to see both worlds together.
Yeah, and I think people are becoming more open to listening to music in languages that they don't understand as well. I suppose that's to do with the internet again, isn't it? And people having access.
For sure. Fusion's becoming something that a lot of bands are looking into as well. Like not just sticking with one genre, mixing genres, mixing languages, mixing styles. It's not just the language. Each city has its own style of music, I would say, even, unique to us. So alien to some other part of the country, but so unique to us, So that's again mixing up. You have like one of the first artists I heard when I started like focusing on the Indian independent scene is this girl called Aditi Ramesh. Phenomenal talent, like amazing, in fact, and she's grown so much in the last 2 years. She does Carnatic jazz. And that was something I had never heard before. Like I'd never heard anyone do Carnatic music, which is very much, from India, and jazz, which is very much not from India, blended together so beautifully that I'm sure she pissed off both extremes. Like the people who really like jazz and the people who really like Carnatic music. I'm sure, they'll have something to say, but the people who were indifferent to either now love her, right? Now love her style. And so now we know what Carnatic is, we know what jazz is big through her. Like when I say we, I mean someone who didn't like the extremes, likes this fusion. And that's how you maybe bring some light to, and I believe she's launching an album or planning to launch an album in Tamil as well. She does English, she's planning to do something in Tamil, and I'm sure her Hindi is great because she's from Bombay. So, but she's from Chennai, she's Tambram rather. So she speaks the language. So people like this, who mix the languages and the styles are what I think will break that divide going
Yeah.
forward, and it's
God,
happening
that's so
already.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Aditi also has a project now called Sambar Soul. And Sambar is like it's like a really unique
So
soupy
staple
sort
South
of
Indian dish, I would
staple
say.
Okay.
soupy sort of dish, which is also kind of soul food.
Yeah.
Like it's what your mom would serve you at home. But then she's also taken that to Sambar Soul, as in soul music, and then doing it with a Carnatic classical twist. So,
I
yeah, I
actually
think
asked her
Aditi
She
is
about
sounds
that.
actually a great
amazing.
example.
She is. You should check it out. I actually asked her about that. She said she was kind of annoyed when people trying to put her in a box. What are you, a jazz musician? Are you a Carnatic musician? Are you? Oh, now you're doing R&B. Oh, but I thought you were a Carnatic jazz musician. So she didn't like the boxes she was being put in, and she wanted to make a whole new genre just for herself called Sambar Soul, which
Yeah.
most people feel accurately describes her.
Wow. Yeah, she sounds so cool.
And coming over to you, Sarah, do you think that over the years of doing Focus Wales, you've seen some of these sort of more fluid changes within the scene in Wrexham as well, as opposed to maybe how things have happened traditionally? Are bands and artists and maybe collectives, labels doing things differently now to be able to tap into the internet opportunities or the newer opportunities that we're presented with today?
I think so, yeah. I think people have just become a bit more conscious of how they're perceived online, and how, not just that, but how they can use the internet to reach different audiences or just present themselves differently. And yeah, there's like a few things in Wrexham. Like, for example, there's a collective called Larynx, who are like a hip hop and spoken word collective, who use online really well. They're always like doing loads of videos, and like they're a group of people, so obviously they need to present all of those different personalities. And I think they're sort of a standout example within Wrexham at the moment, of people who are doing things a bit differently, and like, yeah, they do a lot of collaborations and things. I think in the past, because of that, maybe that confidence thing again that I keep banging on about, I think artists within Wrexham were quite happy maybe to just sort of stay within Wrexham and just sort of like do their thing, which is cool. But now I think they're getting the confidence to think, actually, we could have a big audience and we can use the internet to achieve that, or at least promote ourselves a bit more. I can't think of any other examples off my head, sorry.
That's okay. I am curious about the resurgence that you mentioned with Welsh language music as well. Is that something that's played an important role in the festival and the other work that you guys do?
Yeah, definitely. We're really keen to champion the Welsh language. I mean, there's only 3 of us who work for Focus Wales, and we all speak Welsh. And it's such an important part of Welsh culture, and we're so passionate about preserving the language because it's got such a long history of sort of, in years and years ago, when we were under English rule, of like people trying to stamp out the language, and then Wales fighting back to preserve the language. And Welsh Government have got a big campaign to increase the number of Welsh speakers, which is brilliant. And sort of, yeah, even as much as like 5 years ago, Welsh language artists were sort of, so I don't want to name names, but there was a festival where I think it was highlighted that they didn't have many Welsh language artists on their lineup. So they created a Welsh language stage, which was like literally in a forest. So it's like they can go over there on their own stage. Whereas we've been really keen to just integrate both languages, because especially for international audiences, I love to hear music in different languages if I'm in a different country, and it's really interesting. And I think people are so open to hearing different languages now. And especially within Wales, it's our language. Why can't we sing in our language alongside
Sarah, I actually have a
everyone else?
question.
Yeah.
I was wondering, just now that we mentioned fusion, are there many fusion artists who do both Welsh and English together?
Yeah, totally. Most Welsh language artists will do both Welsh and English. Even there's some acts who perform in English, but maybe some of their song titles will be in Welsh. In fact, there's an artist called Coyote who is actually from Africa but has moved to Wales, and he performs with Griff Rhys, who is sort of our big deal guy, I guess. He was in Super Furry Animals. He's like one of our most famous musicians, and Famady plays in his band. And even he's learning Welsh, and some of his song titles are in the Welsh language. So yeah, people are keen.
How many people outside Wales understand some Welsh?
Well, there's a big community, I think, in Patagonia who speak Welsh, and that's the only other place in the world where people speak Welsh. And there's like a Welsh society in London. I think we'll sort of find our groups wherever we go in the world. We'll find other Welsh people. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot of Welsh speakers outside of Wales.
I really like what you said, Sarah, that when you're a global, music fan, or, you're trying to absorb music from as many different places as possible, a new language really doesn't matter. It's not like films where you're trying to read subtitles while watching what's happening on screen. It's music. And at some level, I think people can just connect with it irrespective of what language it's in. Cool. Reeling off of this, I also want to speak to you both about the audiences. We've spoken about creators and what creators have been doing to build new works, to showcase new works. I want to get a sense from both of you on how you feel the audiences have also evolved over the last couple of years or decade or so in the evolution that a Wrexham or a Chennai has seen. Has the audience also evolved a great deal? Is it still ongoing? And what kind of an evolution has it been?
Yeah, it's definitely still ongoing, and I think it always will be ongoing. But we definitely have a sort of core audience who we'll see every year at Focus Wales. On a very base level, the audience has got bigger, which is brilliant. But also, I think audiences understand Focus Wales more now, and that it is a festival of discovery, and that you're not going to have heard of most of the artists, and that's the point of the festival, is that you're discovering new artists. Whereas in the past, people maybe would have said, well, I haven't heard of any of those artists, so why would I buy a ticket? Whereas now people are like, oh, cool, yeah, I'll buy a ticket and I'll get to watch 300 bands, including some that I know and some that I've never heard of, but I'm sure I'm going to really enjoy. And I think Wrexham as a town has responded to it so well, and everyone really gets behind it. Like, the streets are just like it almost becomes a different town during the festival, and everyone's really pleased that it's on. All the restaurants are full, all the bars are full, the hotels are full, everyone's out for the festival and to have a nice time. And hopefully that will continue. I think last year we were supposed to be adding our first big outdoor stage to the festival. So that will develop the audience even more, because we're going to have some sort of more well-known acts headlining those stages, but also again we'll have local bands on the bill as well supporting. So I think that'll be quite an interesting development for our audience, and we're always trying to bring in maybe genres that we haven't had so much of on the bill to sort of expand audiences in that way. We've got a lot more grime artists and hip hop artists on the lineup this year, because there's been there's just like a lot of that kind of music coming out of Wales at the moment, which is really cool. So we're bringing more of that in, and yeah, we're always keen to find new things and add new things.
Cool. And I want to also ask you, you mentioned that Focus Wales, in a way, was kind of the first big event that sort of celebrated talent like this in Wales. Would you also say that the once a year festival also has an impact on the things that go on in Wrexham throughout the rest of the year? Does it open new opportunities and doors for maybe touring artists to visit the city even when there is no Focus Wales going on? Or do local artists then get recognized in a way where they get the opportunity to travel outside of Wrexham?
Yeah, totally. I think it becomes a sort of point in the year to work towards. Artists will quite often build campaigns around it. You know, if they know they're going to be playing Focus Wales, they'll maybe build a single campaign or something around their show at Focus Wales. Yeah, anything like that, and lots of local companies. I mean, we also we employ loads of volunteers for the festival and loads of staff for the festival. So there's lots of youth groups and local community groups who will also build projects to work towards the festival.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think from what you're saying, I gather that it's not just a regular festival. It's also something that's truly integral to the city of Wrexham and the people. And it seems like a very holistic experience, not just for the musicians, but also for the audience, for the community, for the talent, for the international acts, the local acts. And I just want to say, I feel like that's a very beautiful way of putting together culture in one location at one time, and I think it's a great representation of what we call the scene, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. It's definitely like a big community effort. Focus Wales, everyone really gets behind it. All the venues, or not just music, but arts in general, and the local colleges and things. Yeah, it does feel like a big community.
Yeah, and I think I really do think when enough people at a grassroots level or a local geographical level get behind a movement, I think that's when a scene has the opportunity to really grow into a sustainable sort of model where young bands can still charge for tickets and venues can host these events, and that it all comes full circle, and we can continue to put on these showcases, whether online or offline.
Yeah.
Navin, taking this over to you, do you also feel like there is a similar parallel to be drawn on how maybe the music and arts ecosystem is finding sustainability despite maybe not having venues or not enough events and so on? How do you think they've found some kind of sustenance?
Okay, so I don't think they've found, at least in the independent scene, I don't think anyone's really found sustainability as yet. I think that's something we're yearning towards, something we're working towards for sure. But I don't, at least from my research of all the artists I spoke to, the best ones have great months and some really bad months. And I don't know how sustainable that is when you expect them to also put out high production music independently with all the money they make, which is supposed to go for food and shelter and things like this that they also desperately need. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think online distribution money is large enough to support anyone right now. I'm talking about the best guys, not like the little guys have no chance. The best people in India make hardly anything off streaming music. So then that leaves gigs, but now what do we do with the gigs, not being there? So there is one good takeaway though, which is that people, the consumers, have changed their patterns in terms of how they consume or how much they're willing to pay for consumption. Like back in the day before internet, we had to get a cassette tape or a CD to listen to a whole album of an artist, and then there was a whole part in between. And this is true of movies as well. There's a whole part in between in India where we had a lot of piracy going on. which I'm sure we all have done it at some point, because most of the time it's because we couldn't get it any other way in India, right? But it still happens because we did it for things that we couldn't get. We'd also do it for things that we could get, and no one makes money. So then I think after, when these subscription services started coming in, that changed the game, and I think continually that's going to be a game changer. People are willing to clearly pay for subscription, starting from Netflix and Prime and all these things. People today mostly have multiple streaming platforms to watch stuff on, and they also might have multiple audio platforms like Apple Music and Spotify. They're paying two different platforms to listen to music, sometimes even more than that. There are so many other platforms as well. So that could be a game changer if we can make more money from the streaming, which is what hasn't happened. If we can make the platforms itself make more money, like for example, if a new platform came up that was able to pay more to the artists, then I feel like there would be an immediate shift. People wouldn't care so much about Apple Music and Spotify, apart from the fact that you get to be all over the world instantly. If something else could replace that and pay you, I'm sure artists would jump to that. And I think everyone's just working towards that future. And it's happening. It's happening already. You can see it slowly happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to dig a little deeper into one of the things that you said, which is the culture of paying, right? I think you very rightly said, I'm a 90s kid, and I remember growing up that everything from a mixtape to a cassette, or cassette compilations or DVDs, or everything was, for the early half of it, it was all pirated. And that was the easiest way to get your hands on the latest video games, the latest films, the latest music, everything. But like you've said, the internet and the ability to stream stuff and have these subscription models has drastically changed that. And I think what people in the music business in India have realized, at least the independent music business, is that people are okay to pay that couple of $100 every month. A lot of them have never paid in their life before towards music. It's always been this thing that you just, you're going to get it for free. It doesn't matter. And I think that's also now translating to live events. I know for the longest time, live events have also been struggling with this issue, not just in South India, but all around India, of ticketing culture. Tickets and passes have always been something that was reserved for the international bands, the large concerts, the stadium shows, and and if you have a smaller venue or a bar or a dive bar or a pub or something, you just expect to walk in, and the money you spend in there is at the bar or the food you order. You're not paying for the experience. And I think in many ways that has started to change, because people are okay to pay for an experience online. So they're a little more comfortable to walk into a venue where they're asked to pay, say, 500 rupees to get a ticket. They know that they're not paying that for a beer or for a meal, or it's just to be able to experience the offering for that night. And I think that also translates to the work that you're doing right now with these campaigns online, where maybe patrons or fans of that particular artist or your platform are purely contributing towards the art. They're not doing it to attend a particular show or to attend a night or any of that sort of thing. It's to know that an artist that they appreciate can continually deliver more amazing things for these audiences to enjoy. How would you say that has changed? Because I know crowdfunding has been around for a while, but I think with Original Dog, I noticed that this kind of crowdfunding is very specific to building projects. It's not necessarily you pay this money and here's what you get type.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things we wanted to do a little different. If crowdfunding worked perfectly well for artists as it was, I don't think I would have put it in. The only reason I did is because, again, I saw a gap, and which was I saw a lot of artists getting on platforms like I shan't name names, but platforms that are more catered towards NGOs and charity and medical cases, and in between that you have an artist, I want to produce my music video, and that's sending a wrong image to that art for that artist to the audience. And in fact, these sites are designed to cater to that audience, the NGO audience or the charity audience. So people who are expected to give money there are expected to basically give charity. And I don't think artists are looking for that. I think artists are looking for people to pay for their music, plain and simple. So we wanted to make something that helped do that. One is we wanted to cut it off from anything else but original music. So if someone is coming to fund one artist, they might see another artist and fund them as well. So you get a mixture of fans. The second thing is we purposely don't give anything back to any of the funders. I mean, we love Patreon's model, but we didn't even want to do that. We didn't want to say, okay, you give me this much. Because the exchange that I wanted to see happen was you put money towards this music video. What you're getting is the music video. That's what you're paying for. That's what we want you to be paying for. And you shouldn't be putting the money in for any other reason but that. And having said that, I love this. I mean, I'm so glad we got past the proof of concept stage and have actually done successful campaigns where people have literally just put money to see that music video out or to see that song production out. And this is the same whether it was Valur, a Tamil rapper from a gully, or PK, who was my first artist, who's a much more popular Hyderabad singer-songwriter, to everything in between, the large campaigns up to 1.2 lakhs, 2 lakhs, things of that, much smaller campaigns, 30K, whatever it is. We've managed to do a variety of it, of people who just want to support the artist. Nothing else expected in return but to support the artist and get that music video out. So that's what I want to hopefully encourage more of. Similarly, again, with these offline gigs, if we can somehow try to get that change to happen, it's going to take time. It could take years, let's be honest. But it will and has to happen. It's happening, as you said, slowly. We'll get there.
Cool. Amazing. Yeah. Well, I think what you said is a really, it's a truth that I think most of us who work in the entertainment and arts culture space do accept at some point, is that beautiful things take time, and it's taken a long time for all of these genres and styles in music and film and theater to get to this place. So I think any changing within that is also going to take time, and the internet and technology obviously helps us disrupt much faster, but I still think that a change in how audiences and creators are able to interact with each other does take time. But I think we're moving along at a fairly good pace. In the interest of time, I'm going to make this our last question, but I think we've covered pretty much all of it. And Navin, you brought up the question yourself, so thank you so much. Sarah, I want to ask you, what was the COVID experience like for you and the team at Focus Wales as a festival, as a platform, as a team? And how did you maybe adapt to this weird new situation we're in?
Yeah, so obviously when the pandemic first started, it was quite devastating for us. It was about to be our 10th anniversary, and we'd been working so hard to create our 10th anniversary festival. We were supposed to be in May, and the lockdown started at the end of March. So we had to quite quickly pivot to everything and adapt and decide what we were going to do really quickly. But having said that, once that bit was over, I think we've actually adapted really well, and we've learned a lot. And it's been good for us to have a bit of a break, I think, from live, because we've been able to stand back and have some perspective on things, reassess things, sort of do a big evaluation that we've never previously had time to do. And we've been able to work on so many projects that we've never had time to do. And start new projects and connect with people who, for no reason other than time, we've just never previously worked with as much as we've wanted to. And we've done a lot of online events as well. We moved our entire conference online. In September, we did a project called Out of Focus. So we had lots of online panel sessions and webinars and discussions, which are free to view for everyone on our website now. And we also did, we called them Artist Accelerator Sessions, where basically it was like speed meetings between artists and delegates online, so that we could replicate some of that networking process that you have at festivals, which worked really well, actually. We had loads of good feedback, and just last week we did another version of it called Out of Focus Canada Series. So that was our first international online conference where we did the same thing but with our Canadian partners. So 3 festivals over there: Breakout West, for Montreal, and Nova Scotia Music Week. So we had a focus day on each of those territories and connected artists from each of them with music industry from the UK, and then also with Welsh artists who music industry over there in Canada. And again, we've had really good feedback from that, and all of those sessions will be on our website to watch as well for free. So we've just been able to sort of continue that talent development work online, which I think is translated really well, actually. Obviously we're all really missing live, but hopefully, fingers and toes and everything crossed, hopefully we'll get back to that soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the same all around the world. In India, we've been fortunate to have these events for the last few months, but I think now we're seeing a second spike in the numbers. So I think a lot of parts are sort of going into a second round of lockdowns. But fingers crossed, absolutely, that we can all around the world get back to doing amazing things in person while being healthy. Cool. I think with that, we're going to have to wrap this episode up. But I really want to thank both of you for your amazing insights into the work that you do and the learnings from that, and sort of how the projects you're working on are helping shape subcultures into very active and sort of engaging platforms for artists and other professionals within the music ecosystem in Wrexham, South India, and other parts. Thank you so much for joining us. And to our listeners, we're also going to link the stuff that both Sarah and Navin have mentioned on their respective platforms, so you can go through those resources. And I highly encourage everyone to also check out Original Dog if you're based in India or South India specifically. Try and use it. It's a great tool to sort of put yourself out there and find new audiences. And also, I'm sure a lot of young emerging talent will have a lot to learn from the series that Focus Wales has put out as part of their conferences. Thank you very much once again for the last time for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been so nice to meet you both.
Absolutely. And hopefully once all of this is behind us, Original Dog and Focus Wales and Madras Medai can all come together and do some amazing things.
Yes.
Brilliant, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure all of us are. And last but not the least, a huge thank you to the team at British Council for helping us put this conversation together, put this series together, and hopefully our listeners will be able to gain some much needed insights from this to help build their own projects and ideas and come together. This is your host Tejas, and thank you for tuning in for this episode. Make sure to catch the other episodes on the series, and good luck and see you soon.